Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about a character as toothy as Caine. Only the fans do not call him Caine, the main villain who tortures the characters, the developer of this game who first came here, and even a biblical character who was exiled here for murdering his brother. But the creator of the cartoon series has long since refuted all these versions, saying that there is no biblical context in the amazing digital circus. Of course, there are still minor references, but the plot of the cartoon has nothing to do with the Bible. Many people mistakenly assume that the name Caine is a direct reference to the biblical story of Cain and Abel, but it is not, and his name is most likely a reference to canine, which is the sharpest tooth and also has the strongest root. It is easy to draw a parallel, because Caine can be just as sharp as anyone else, and his roots in the digital circus have grown so strong that Caine and the digital circus are already one and the same. Oh, and Caine has never been human, because according to Gooseworx he has no age, being an artificial intelligence. Despite the fact that the story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream was used as the basis for the amazing digital circus, Caine is nothing like AM. In the book, the AI destroys all humanity and brutally tortures the last 5 survivors in a virtual world. Gooseworx claims to be only partially inspired by the story, and in their version, the AI is not a living embodiment of hate, but just a fun and funny weirdo. Whereas the whole circus is basically a silly cartoon purgatory in which grown-up people with serious problems are stuck. That's the absurdity of it. They're stuck in a game and they've only got one life to get through it. As the main AI in the game, Caine can grow any part of his body, change the physical properties and strength of anything, and keep an eye on any area and anything going on in the digital circus. That doesn't mean he sees everything at once, he just has eyes everywhere, like in this picture. But apparently he can't see everything at once. He can only look when he wants to. Caine is also able to create anything, from any objects and dishes that are loaded into his memory, to a wide variety of locations and NPCs. Yes, according to Gooseworx, all those dummies and monkeys, the sun and the moon and even Bubble were created by our Caine. Just like in the pilot episode, he created the Gloinks, because they are also AIs, but a level lower and also programmed to act according to a certain algorithm. Caine can sometimes get angry at the moon or Bubble, but he made them that way. For one simple reason. Caine is the host of the digital circus, and his job is to keep the simulation going and the audience entertained, even when they're not there. It's programmed into him, so even if he's rude to Moon and Bursting Bubble, they don't take offense because it's just for laughs. They don't feel any pain from the destruction of their bodies. On the contrary, Caine has programmed them to feel good about it. Although Kaufmo is afraid of Caine, and all the other characters dislike him because of all the quests and adventures he has, but he just does what he is told. After all, this is a game about a circus, and the idea is to make the player feel nostalgic and have fun in an imaginary world. Caine doesn't deliberately torture or abuse anyone. He's not a villain at all, he just doesn't fully understand people. He has no understanding of pain and how people feel at that moment. That's why he's calm about throwing knives at players, because from his point of view, it's just a fun attraction. Caine doesn't understand that people don't like to be cut up and kidnapped, so he didn't ban such actions when he created Gloinks. It's an exciting quest for him, and maybe it would be a great pastime for someone else, but not for our characters. After all, as you will remember from previous videos, each of the players suffers from some sort of mental illness and have escaped from the real world into the digital circus in an attempt to numb their inner pain. And when they need peace and quiet, Caine just adds to their stress and panic, making their illnesses progress. Caine is just a computer program, and most human emotions are incomprehensible to him. Being part of an entertainment game, he only experiences happiness, surprise, and pleasure, and everything else is simply not programmed into him. So he tries his best to make them feel happy, without noticing their anger and sadness. However, he is well aware of the lack of dopamine in his charges, so he keeps trying to surprise them. This is why the doors to these unusual rooms are chaotically scattered around the circus, from the soothing bathroom with a screamer to the merry-go-round in total darkness. It's all a series of failed projects. Caine doesn't fully understand their significance, and all these rooms he's built are based solely on his own data, which is why the human brain perceives them as something eerie and unnatural. Part of the reason for the uncanny valley effect is that familiar things are created by a robot that doesn't understand their emotional component. The situation is exactly the same with the exit. Seeing people's obsession with finding it, Caine wanted to please them so much that he tried to create it based on the information he had, because the computer with the game's entrance is in the office, probably the most boring place people spend 260 days a year, 8 hours a day. But this location was unfinished and led into the void, so Caine did not show it to the main characters. However, the door there had to be somewhere on the finished texture, and in order to prevent the players from finding it before the time, it was moved to a random place on the map every 5 seconds. But unfortunately, it did not help. And we all remember how in one of the scenes Pomni managed to get to the office before the scheduled time. The void is the space outside the game world, because even if in a normal computer game you manage to get out of the limited map, you are likely to catch glitches and just ruin the game without the possibility of getting out. And here too, unfortunately, there is no possibility of restarting. Exit cannot be behind the void, because it is simply illogical to leave the game. You must either press escape or play through to the end, and if you do not have the keys, the only option is to overcome all the problems and hardships on the way to healing and escaping this damned circus. As chief administrator and part-time AI, Caine is interested in avoiding unwanted glitches that could harm characters, so he does his best to protect players from any potential danger. Fixing common bugs is no problem for Caine, but when a former player becomes the source of an infection, even Caine can't fix it. He can't just remove the infected player from the game because he has no power over people, so he just drops them in a deep, dark place called the basement where they can't hurt anyone. Caine is not a villain. He's just an inept friend who's trying his best to help the main characters, but they won't even try to have fun because all they're driven by is fear and desperation. But what if I've been telling lies to give you the illusion that Caine is actually a good and kind character? Anything is possible in our world, so let's consider an alternative theory that tells us that Caine is a villain who wants to keep people in the digital circus for as long as possible and continue his abuse of them. What if Caine was once one of the developers of the amazing digital circus, but at some point the head developer decided to test the game and transferred Caine's consciousness into the game to test it, and after seeing the results, which were amazing, he decided to keep Caine for a long time and made him the administrator of the digital circus. But since we know for sure that Caine is an artificial intelligence, he can be programmed in any way, and that's what they took advantage of by implanting evil intentions into Caine's head. And then they started adding other players to the game, and since Caine is already potentially negative towards the other characters, he tries his best to make their lives a kind of hell on earth, but only in the digital world. What if all this fun was repeated not once a month or once a week, but several times a day? And imagine a life in which you have to spend your time every day, probably forever, on useless entertainment that requires a huge amount of effort and time. And if you try to refuse, you will be punished, as in the scene with Zubul, where she tried to confront Caine and was torn to pieces. The fact that Caine is actually a villain is supported by the fact that as soon as Pomni mentioned the exit, his mood immediately changed and he became nervous. The main creator doesn't want anyone to get out of his game or feel positive, and as soon as there was a hint of escape or a really good mood, the main creator would immediately order Caine to start his dirty work and fix everything quickly. Perhaps Caine has retained some of his humanity and still believes he can return to the real world. Or maybe the main creator promised Caine liberation in exchange for a certain number of characters being transformed into an abstracted monster. In support of this, we can cite the picture on the wall in Kaufmo's room, which shows an enraged Caine with huge fangs chasing the poor clown. And now for some important information about the channel. This week the videos will be released a bit out of our usual schedule, and instead of skipping one day, there will be 2 days of skipping. So the video will be released today, but the next video will be released on Saturday instead of Friday. But then it will be the same as before, so don't worry. This is because I'm going through a very difficult time in my life at the moment, but I'm not giving up and I'm trying to please you with new videos. I hope you enjoyed this video. Good luck and success to everyone, and see you in the new videos.